Welcome into NFL Daily Live 1 week before this year's NFL trade deadline as the buzz and the rumors, the theories, the ideas, and everything else in between continue to grow and percolate. We'll be live the next hour plus, breaking down all the latest on the NFL. And as always, we'll give a chance for the audience to click that notification, tune in, and give you guys a chance to sound off with your thoughts. First up, and it is the pin poll of today's video. Will the Titans trade away Derrick Henry? Never more feasible than it is right now. He's in the last year of his contract, and the Titans already shipped away one of their defensive stalwarts, their veteran stalwarts in Kevin Byard. Will Derrick Henry be next? Y for yes, N for no. Please vote for me in the comment section and on the pin poll of today's video. 67% say yes. XD Gamer, who's a Jags fan, says hopefully. Understandable. Shelly says Y for yes. I'm curious how these pin polls continue to change, the votes at least, as more audience comes in and votes as things move along there. SM says no. It is 67% voting yes on the pin poll right now. I think it's doable. I also don't think he's going to command what you think he might get. It's a rental. It's a little bit of money involved there. And frankly, Henry has not been the same guy we remember. I would argue he's not been a top 5 back this year in the NFL. I'd be able to argue he's still a top back in what he's done previously, but guy's been a 4.4 yard per carry guy for 3 years now. Now, the O-line's bad in Tennessee. That's who he is. SM says no. Clayton liked the video. Thank you, Clayton. XD wants Daniel Hunter. XD Gamer, keep watching. We will get to trade predictions. I have one involving your Jags I think you might end up liking in the end. Fire Mike McCarthy says yes. Matt Tuween says a yard sale. Everything must go for the Titans. They're done. I think everything but I don't know. Jeffrey Simmons price there because they just paid him. Maybe they keep Treylon Burks and their other young quarterbacks. But I think there could very well be a fire sale blow up in Tennessee. Christopher Flores says yes. Keep the comments coming and get your trade predictions in the comments right now. You can team player match. You don't even have to mention what the trade value itself would be in terms of draft capital, whatever. Put your trade predictions in the comment section right now. DeAndre Jones mentioned, I think back to Derrick Henry, the Ravens. I think it'd be a fun fit. Lamar and Henry together, they can still run the football pretty decently, but Henry upgrades that level a little bit more there. I love the Ravens as a fit for a team that wants to add a back. You know, you have the Gus Bus, he's fine. Justice Hill. Keaton Mitchell is not, despite what the fantasy people might tell you, not going to be a big piece this year. It's not going to happen. Christopher Flores says Kyle Duggar. I'd be intrigued by that. I think it'd be dumb if Patriots traded him away. I think Duggar's a really good player. And probably should be viewed as a long-term piece for them, but I'd call. Marco says Dolphins trade for Baker and Surtain. Do you mean Baker, Buda Baker? That'd be my guess. I don't know if they're good for Stan because they're going to get Jalen Ramsey back soon, so they should be okay at corner even with now Xavier Howard banged up too. They're also a bit light on Jeffco, but I like the Buda Baker idea. Man, Baker and Javon Holland together, that's the best thing to do in the NFL. That's awesome. Devin Duvernay, Rashad Bateman, 3rd-round pick for Scary Terry. You got to up that level for the Commanders. I don't think Duvernay Bateman have that much value. It might have to be like Bateman and a 1 for Scary Terry. Matt Tuween says stack those draft picks. We rework the cap, find a better QB. This is for the Titans, I would assume. Well, you had previously in there. Fly Eagles Fly says Brian Burns to the Eagles. Man, do they need another pass rusher? Howie Roseman makes stuff happen. Brian Burns should go for a 1, so you'd probably see him go for like a 3rd to the Eagles because Howie Roseman does, I would say, borderline illegal things. I don't know how he makes it happen. Also, everyone's like, oh, we got to ban the tush push, brotherly shove. No, you don't have to. Ban the Eagles making trades with Tennessee. That will be a better competitive balance rule for the entire NFL. Obviously kidding. What I'm not kidding about, though, is PrizePicks, the sponsor of today's NFL Daily Live edition. PrizePicks is the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. It is also the easiest and the most exciting way to play DFS. It is you against the numbers. You are not battling thousands of other players, the pros, the sharks. It's just you against the numbers. You pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. I have gone full coward. I am doing the flex plays across the board because I'm really good at getting all but one leg of my pick. So the flex play makes it perfect from that perspective. My picks this week, I'm thinking Bryce Young breakout game. More than 210.5 passing yards with Frank Reich no longer calling the plays. A Travis Kelce touchdown and more than Trevor Lawrence passing yards. I like taking the more than on Lawrence. Did nothing against the Colts. I think it will this week. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Link will be in the comments and the description of today's video. Again, that's prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Now, what do you guys like more? D for the draft, T for trades, or F for free agency? It's the old DTF question. It's funny. I like it that way. I go draft, trades, free agency in that order because trades are fun. They're just not enough that happens, unfortunately, for the NFL. Trades leads the way in the NBA. MLB, it's free agency, I guess. Trade deadline's kind of fun. It's not the draft in MLB. NFL, though, I'm a draft guy. We get 256 picks of people that actually people have heard of before, unlike the MLB draft, for example. Christopher says T. SM says D. Shelly says D. Epic Jet says FTD. Christopher says TDF. Jonathan G says DFT. What do you guys like more? D for draft, T for trades, or F for free agency? What's your preference when it comes to the off-season or in-season movement for various NFL teams? Tyrone says FTD. Rusty says DT. DeAndre Jones says D. SM says draft there. Rusty says FTP. P is P for players? F the Patriots? I don't know. It could be anything there, Rusty. Thank you, my friend. We will spend some time once again on the Broncos. Wide receiving core. Yeah, they beat Green Bay. Green Bay might be bad. I don't know. They're one of the 8 teams I have no idea what to make of, even though we're 7 weeks in. No idea if they're good or not. But Denver will be shopping players. They will be listening to lots of trade offers. They're in a bit of a retooling phase, if not a full-on rebuild, with Sean Payton now in charge. Of their 2 notable receivers, who is most likely to be moved? JJ for Jerry Jeudy or CS for Courtland Sutton? Of those 2, if any of them, but you got to pick one, who do you think ends up getting moved by the Denver Broncos in the next week or so, knowing there's a decent chance what happens while we're live today? Decent chance. Non-zero, let me put it that way, from that perspective. So, we're going to move. JJ, CS. I see a lot of JJs in there. SM, Rusty, JR, Eric, Procopios, Chris, Drew, Chualor, Sean 17. A CS from Fly Eagles Fly and franchise LeBron. Christopher says Jerry Jeudy to New England. Are they going to buy or sell? They're not that good, but they still need receiver because God love Bill Belichick, producer Chris. He can't evaluate wide receivers. He can't do it. He can eval slot receivers, which they don't want anymore, which is weird, and still realize Randy Moss had some stuff in the tank. But all of his receivers have all been misses for like years now.
Yeah, I've been saying this for a while. I think the Patriots have one of the worst receiving corps in the NFL right now.
And they've also invested money and capital into it. It's not like they've ignored it. They paid Devontae Parker. They paid Kendrick Bourne. They drafted Tyquan Thornton in the second round. They paid Juju Smith-Schuster. And they're letting Demario Douglas, a 6th-round rookie, be like the number 1 guy. It's really weird. It's really weird. The goal on every show we do, especially live shows, is a 50% like rate. So can we get there on today's video? We have 140-ish people watching live right now. At minimum, let's get to 70. Or maybe just 50. Keep things a little bit lower expectation there. Like that video if you haven't already done so to help us continue to grow. The more that we get likes on our videos. The more views we do, the more subs we get, the more money we make, and the more videos we can do. What's the terminology for it? It's a cycle that goes forward from that perspective. It's a positive cycle too. It's simple, it's free, and it helps us out a pretty big way. So if you haven't already, please like today's video right now. Here's what's coming up on today's live edition of NFL Daily. NFL trade rumors, NFL trade predictions before the 2023 trade deadline. NFL Mailbag, again, get your super chats in if you want a guaranteed spot on the mailbag. And the latest Mel Kiper 2024 NFL Draft Big Board. I have some thoughts on those that's, how do I put this delicately? Interesting is what Mel cooked up this time around. So we'll break it all down here live for you on NFL Daily. We're talking trade rumors on these 5 guys on today's show. Plus, maybe one more you might sneak in there. Derrick Henry, DeAndre Hopkins, Montez Sweat, Chase Young, and Jerry Jeudy. Not necessarily in that order, so make sure you watch the entirety of today's show. And the NFL trade deadline is 1 week away. We will have tons of rumors and news, everything else in between coverage for you on the NFL trade deadline. Some big names on the block, apparently. If you want updates, simply subscribe. It is free right here on Chat Sports. Let's begin with Derrick Henry and the Titans overall. They made the somewhat surprising but big-time trade to ship out Kevin Byard, get Terrell Edmonds, who's not that great, and some day 3 draft capital. And for a team that is not that good this year, despite the best efforts from a very good head coach in Mike Vrabel, and despite, still kind of being alive in the race, their quarterback's hurt. We'll see how Will Levis and Malik Willis both those guys play. The fire sale rumors are here, and that includes Derrick Henry somewhat significantly. Now, he is in the last year of his contract. In total, is due $10.5 million so far this season. Now, you wouldn't owe him everything from that perspective. It'd be the prorated amount, which comes in just under $6 million. It's around half, a little bit more than half for the quick, easy math there for you guys. It's around $6 million, though. And if the Titans are going to rebuild, if they're going to not compete this year, Henry's in the last year of his deal. I think you should trade him. I really do. We'll get to some team ideas in a little bit. I do want to mention this part, too. Derrick Henry is not King Henry anymore. I'm sorry. There's still flashes of it, and the O-line in Tennessee is not very good. That's a fair factor. We now have 3 years of sample size that shows Derrick Henry is about a 4.4 yard per carry player. That's not bad. That's still actually pretty good relative to most in the NFL. But his rush yards over expectation are down again this year relative to his peak years. The Derrick Henry contract, by the way, is like the one running back contract that's actually worked out. They're trading him because they're bad, not because he sucks or is going to get cut. It might just be time for Derrick Henry to move on, go somewhere else, and let Tajay Spears take over the lead role in Tennessee. He's been actually kind of good this year. Under the radar, he's averaging smaller sample size, to be fair. It would drop if they give him more touches. 5.5 yards per carry, which is pretty darn crazy from that perspective. He has been a nice young piece. Now, there are trade odds out there on Derrick Henry. Buffalo Bills are your betting favorite because, of course, they are. The Chiefs at plus 250 I find curious since Isaiah Pacheco is pretty good. The Miami Dolphins are mandated to every and all back, which is whatever. The Cowboys, of course, they're on that list. Pittsburgh is weird because, you have Najee Harris, Jalen Warren. Love the Ravens at plus 900. Minnesota at plus 100 as well, which is curious, and the Bengals plus 1,000. Now, the top Henry trade fits, I believe, look more like this. I love the Ravens as a fit. I think that really stands out to me. I think the Bills are a decent fit if they want to try to lighten the workload on Josh Allen and make him play less hero chaos ball. I think the Browns are a sleeper team because the quarterback's a big issue, but they've got injuries in the backfield now too. Cowboys and Dolphins, you kind of got to mention. I might be surprised, though, if they made a trade. Not that many teams need a back in the end. So prediction time. Will the Titans end up trading away Derrick Henry? Y for yes, N for no. It is the pinned comment on this video. If that ad comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. We shall stay in Tennessee now with DeAndre Hopkins. Jason Lockenfor, who now writes for the Washington Post, and he says he talks to NFL GMs and executives, and I just don't know if I believe it. Or the ones he is talking to, NFL execs are no different than you and I to a certain extent. They got bad opinions too sometimes. He thinks there'd be major interest in DeAndre Hopkins. Now, remember, folks, there was very limited trade interest in Hopkins initially when the Cardinals cut him and the Titans signed him to a 2-year, $26 million deal. But he is due very little in salary. So because he's so cheap, because he's been solid for Tennessee, I do think you could get something for DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think it's as much as alleged NFL GM says. Here's what Jason Lockenfor wrote for the Post. The big question is future Hall of Fame wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins, who got $9 million to sign, but carries a minimal salary. Would they pay $9 million for a second-round pick? Wonder GM1. The Titans could get that value in return with perhaps a smidgen more based on Hopkins' production with his new team, which I think refers to, a conditional pick going back to the Titans there. But that would be a second-round pick and change for DeAndre Hopkins, a player who nobody was willing to move a draft pick for, period, when he was cut by the Cardinals, which is really interesting. I have some more thoughts on this because this does not pass the smell test for me at all. We will get to those, but first, today's show is made possible by PrizePicks, the easiest and most fun way to play daily fantasy sports in North America. It is you against the numbers. You are not battling thousands of other players, the pros, the sharks, etc. You simply pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and then watch those winnings roll in. You can mix and match NFL, college football, NBA now back in the fold, MLB for a little bit longer as well. My prize picks week. I think I've hit 3 in a row now of the flex play. I'm taking the coward's way out moving forward because it's. Tell you what, if there was an award for getting the most all but one picks right of prize picks and getting one leg short, I would be the winner. But that's why the flex play is so valuable. You just got to get 2 right to come out on top. Bryce Young, more than passing yards, breakout week. Travis Kelce, anytime TD, that one's pretty easy. And Trevor Lawrence, more than passing yards as well, because life's too short to take the less than. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Link will be in the comments section and the description. Again, folks, that's prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for that first deposit match up to $100. All right, back to Nuke Hopkins. There's no way what would be a rental of DeAndre Hopkins, or maybe a second year that's kind of expensive, honestly, is worth a second-round pick. Look, I get the trade market is a mess. You got Chase Claypool, draft swap along with Mecole Hardman. You got Chase Claypool originally going for a second back with the Bears. Cooks for a day 3 pick with the Cowboys in the offseason. There was no real trade interest in DeAndre Hopkins in the offseason. There wasn't. Everyone's like, oh, Chiefs, Cowboys, blah, blah, blah. No one made a real offer for him. Cardinals ended up cutting him. They wouldn't have done that if they could find a real trade partner. And the real lack of free agency interest also shows how little interest there was in Hopkins. And this is a declining player. I'm sorry, he is. He's still good. Don't get me wrong. There is trade value associated with DeAndre Hopkins. But I'm staring down the barrel here of a guy with 376 yards in 6 games, trending towards maybe being a 1,000-yard receiver with the extra game. He misses a game, he does not get there. That's not a second-round pick player anymore. It's not in the modern-day NFL. I'm sorry. So what draft pick do you think DeAndre Hopkins is worth? Sound off for me in the comment section right now. Let's stick with receivers and go to Jerry Jeudy. Those Broncos trade rumors aren't going anywhere. And frankly, Jerry Jeudy has not lived up to the expectations that Denver's had for him. He can get open. He does that well for the most part, but inconsistency in both production and I think just the day-to-day stuff, that's why Denver's okay trading him, have not been his strong suits so far. Now, allegedly, the Denver Broncos wanted a first-round pick during the NFL draft. Obviously, no one said yes to that, and they're not going to get that now. Here's what ESPN's Jeremy Fowler suggested. Broncos wideout Jerry Jeudy's name has percolated for a while. That's always a fun verb, by the way. He will have suitors. Teams are torn on his worth, though, with multiple executives saying they couldn't justify a day 2 pick for Jeudy at this stage, though others said a third-round pick might suffice based on, a late third rounder might suffice based on Jeudy's ability. You're banking on the upside, right? You're banking on Jeudy being an ascending player who was almost a 1,000-yard guy last year. Has not been that great this year. His numbers have declined. And I'll also point this out for Jeudy. The Fowler did not mention, but I think he mentioned it in another piece previously. There is money issues here, too. Because guaranteed money-wise, he mentioned, Denver wants someone has to eat the Sutton contract. Jerry Jeudy's deal next year is fully guaranteed at over $10 million. It's a lot of money for a guy that's put up 286 yards so far this season with no touchdowns, by the way. It's all the upside pick with Jerry Jeudy compared to, say, Courtland Sutton. And so, look, Sutton's outplayed Jeudy so far this year. The money is more expensive this year, but overall, it's not that dissimilar. In fact, it's actually a little bit cheaper for Sutton over the next 2 years because you can get out of his deal with no more guaranteed money. It's a little bit more complicated than you might see looking at only the numbers this year. Jeudy's deal next year is a problem. Now, who is more likely to be moved? JJ for Jerry Jeudy or CS for Courtland Sutton? Let's go to the Commanders. Could they trade away Chase Young or even maybe Montez Sweat? ESPN says, hey, they will listen to offers for both of those players, etc. It is very unlikely that the Commanders end up keeping both players next year. Both guys in the final years of their contract. They've paid Jonathan Allen. They've paid Deron Payne. It's tough to pay the market rate for 2 other edge rushers. Doesn't mean that would happen. Now, Josina Anderson tweeted this, and I'm going to condense it down because I don't always like Josina's tweets. They're very wordy and kind of get off topic. Teams have interest, basically, in Montez Sweat and Chase Young and willing to offer them a long-term deal, by the way. Now, I don't know what an identifiable team is. What, is there an unknown NFL team with actually 33 teams that we don't know about? Or are you saying there's interest, you're just not going to say which teams? I think it's the latter, but it feels like we're trying to use fancy words to sound smart. Anyway, money issues, pay issues for both these guys, right? Chase Young due 5.3 this year, did not pick up the 5th-year option. The prorated number ends up being like, 3-ish, somewhere in that range. Montez Sweat has more money. He's actually been a bit more productive than Chase Young. These are both former first-round picks who I think at minimum should be able to fetch you nothing worse than a 4th and probably at least a day 2 pick and probably multiple picks in the end. The issue here, and why I don't think they get dealt, outside of ownership stepping up and saying, do it, Ron Rivera, the Commanders should trade. That they are not a contender. They should sell. If whatever guy that they're not going to pay, trade the other one away. That's what they should do. But trading away one of your best young pieces probably means that Ron Rivera gets fired, and so does Martin Mayhew. And that does not bode well. They're not going to sacrifice their own job security so the next guy gets an extra 3rd-round pick. So that's why you need a real GM. Unless ownership says, we're doing this, make the best deal that you can, I find it tough to see Ron Rivera and company selling at this year's trade deadline. All right, folks, over or under 7.5 trades between now and this year's NFL trade deadline. Over or under? I want to go over. I think over is the most entertaining outcome. It makes it more fun. We've had some deals. You had the Mecole Hardman deal. I'm sure there will be at least one more receiver or tight end that gets flipped for a future day 3 pick swap. It's been very popular this year. Been a lot of those, which is just kind of funny. Melvin says over. XD Gamer over with the Jags making 2 moves. Ooh, I love the aggressiveness. Mark Barton says over. Chris B, hopefully over. Milvet says over. Bruh says over. Atlanta will make 2 from Milvet. Epic Jet, I'm going to say under, but at least one big trade will happen. Chris Ashford says under. Marcos Noah says over. The Dolphins make 2. They've been super aggressive, which is quite interesting there. Clayton Lockhart says O. Gaming Wizard says U. Chris Zero says over, but the Cowboys end up doing nothing. Probably the most likely outcome in the end. Keep your over or under responses coming for 7.5 trades between right now, as we sit here filming this, at 5:27 p.m. Eastern Time, or under for the NFL trade deadline. Today's show, surprise, it's on trades because the NFL trade deadline, less than a week away now. We have trade predictions for 5 notable players if they end up getting moved. Of course, there is no guarantee any of these guys will, but if it happens, I think I've cooked up some fun and fair, for the most part, ideas for all 5 guys. Now, when trades happen, we're going to have you guys covered here on Chat Sports. Going to have some fun NFL trade deadline coverage for you as well. So if you haven't already, please hit that sub button right now. YouTube.com/ChatSportsTV. Free videos each and every single day. Our first trade prediction, a player who the team says they don't want to move on from. That is Saquon Barkley of the New York Giants. But teams should be calling because the Giants are in a very awkward spot. They don't want to pay him big money. A team that could use a back? How about the Baltimore Ravens? Now, he's got owed an $8.1 million salary. Ravens would owe the pro-rated figure, which comes out to roughly, a little over $4.5 million. That's not too bad for a team. Now, the running back trade market has been brutal for a while. Yes, DeAndre Swift got a 4th-round pick. It was from 2 drafts later. That's kind of like a 6th-round pick, frankly. My trade is a bit more expensive. The Ravens get Saquon Barkley, who they would then let walk in free agency, and in theory, get a 3rd or a 4th-round future comp pick back. It'd be a late 3rd they'd give up. The Giants get more draft capital, which I kind of think that they need. Barkley, by the way, he's missed some time again with injuries. That's why the 3rd almost might be too rich for him, frankly. But if the Giants don't want to trade him, you have to make them say no. The 3rd in the end might be enough to make that happen. 3.8 yards per carry. Continues to offer you some pass-catching value, but this Giants team is just not going anywhere right now. But I think we would almost all agree that Saquon Barkley is better than what the Ravens have right now. 86 carries, 346 yards for Gus Edwards, 41 for 196 for Justice Hill. Gus Edwards is an 80-yard receiving catch, by the way, which I think boosts those receiving yards up. Barkley helps you as a pass catcher. More than Hill has done really nothing there. And Edwards, that's how the one catch have done. I think that's a big element of the argument for the trade as well. Other teams I like, by the way, thought about the Bills, have them later. Thought about the Browns as well. So should the Giants trade Saquon Barkley? This will be today's pinned comment. You should know what that is by now if you've been subscribed. It means the ad might come here on YouTube. If it does, head down to the pinned comment and type in Y for yes, they should, emphasis on should, and for no, they will not. Speaking of should, the Ravens really should free Hunter Renfrow at this stage because they are doing very mean things to him, like not playing a guy that they paid and instead feeding targets to literally everyone else on their roster. The money's a problem for this one. He's due roughly $7 million in new cash over the course of the year. Cut that number in half, and you're at $3.5–4 million for a guy with like 6 catches. It's not very good. A lot of routes you could have gone here. I like the Bills. I've gone back to this one quite a few times. They have Deontay Hardy, more on him in a little bit. But I think that check down safety valve wide receiver, an upgraded Cole Beasley for Buffalo, would make life a little bit easier on Josh Allen. Hopefully take away some of the hits and the chaos moments, the negative ones that he produces. I'm going to stick with the future pick swap that has been oh so popular this year. This would probably be the Raiders don't eat that much money because, again, the money's an issue at this stage. 6th-round pick for Renfrow and a 7th. Dark horse team, I would have done it, but PFF already did. How about straight up for Carl Lawson from the Jets? Don't sleep on that idea, folks. The Raiders want some pass rush help, even though they're not that good. Whatever. Renfrow was a 1,000-yard receiver back in 2021. And injuries have been a problem? Sure, that's fair. But hasn't been hurt this season. Josh McDaniels comes to town and says, I had a lot of success with Julian Edelman in New England. You know what I'm going to do? Not give the ball to Hunter Renfrow at all and just ignore a guy that they paid after he got here. That is a damning indictment, by the way, on the Raiders as an organization. They have no idea what they're doing with their playmakers. Renfrow is totally wasted in Vegas. He'd be a fun fit in Buffalo. And yes, they have some slot guys. I don't mind Deontay Hardy, and I get that they paid Hardy as well. He and Renfrow are very different style players. Their plan was, hey, we're going to use 2 tight end packages this year. We're going to use Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid together. Well, now one of them's injured. How about instead of the 2 tight end packages, how about you lean into some 3 and 4 receiver sets? Davis and Diggs on the outside. You can still use Renfrow. He'd be super cheap. Trent Sherfield and Khalil Shakir are not moving the needle for me at the wide receiver spot. I like Shakir long-term, but he's still not there yet at this stage. Now, today's show is made possible by PrizePicks. They are the largest independently owned DFS platform in North America, and it's simple to play, making it easy and exciting as well. Make your picks, submit an entry in just a few taps, and turn $10 into $250 just like that. You can mix and match just NFL games. You can do NFL and college football games, NFL, NBA, NFL and MLB, college football, NBA. They got a wide variety of options and projections on any sport, not just football. You can even do esports, folks. My picks for this week's slate of NFL games, since it is NFL Daily after all. I'm feeling Bryce Young breakout game, more than passing yards. Travis Kelce, more than half touchdown, so 1, and more than Trevor Lawrence passing yards as well. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for the first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS. Link will be in the comments and the description of today's video. Let's move to the Commanders. Chase Young, obviously on the Tuesday evening video, rumors, we mentioned the downside of giving up on Chase Young because it might get Ron Rivera fired. But if they're not going to pay Chase Young long term, yes, they should trade him. Get a better asset than a comp pick. Any pick you get in the same round will be higher than that comp pick, in theory. And you can spend money in free agency and not worry about losing the comp pick. By the way, it's very important to always consider. And you can bottom out a little bit this year if you want to rebuild. A team that needs some pass rush help, the Jacksonville Jags. They are a legitimate contender, not just for the AFC South, but to make some noise in the postseason because they have the coaching staff. I love watching Trevor Lawrence play. The defense needs some help. My trade idea is as follows. The Jags, of course, get Chase Young, a 3rd-round pick. It's a former top 5 NFL selection who's got 5 sacks already so far this season after missing the first game of the year. I'll throw in a conditional 2025 pick, kind of like that Calvin Ridley deal, based on if they pay him, playoff success could be another 3rd, or could it only be like no package if like Chase Young gets hurt potentially this season. Last 4 years for Chase Young, that his career stats. He looks more like the guy we saw in his first year. He is already on pace to shatter his career highs. Hell, he might do it before the trade deadline comes. Still in the range of outcomes, although it is Philadelphia, so probably not. But he might be a 10-sack guy this season. That carries value. And for Jacksonville, to put it in perspective, my friends, the guy's got almost as many sacks as the rest of the team not named Josh Allen combined does. Josh Allen has 7. Trayvon Walker is not there yet. He needs still significantly more time. He's got 2.5 sacks this year. Kayvon Chasen, not that good. DeJuan Smoot, okay, he's back, 1 sack. Roy Robertson Harris, a 1/2 sack. They need pass rush help. Going after Chase Young or Danielle Hunter or whatever makes a ton of sense. And if Chase Young does get traded, or at least they will listen to offers, there will be interest. Lots of teams need pass rush help here. So will Chase Young get traded? 1 for yes, he will. 0 for no, he will not. Get those predictions in for me in the comment section right now. Bears quarterback Jaylon Johnson. Now make no mistake, if I ran the Bills, I would simply pay him because that's like really simple and easy, and I think that's really fun to do, and he's a good player. If they don't want to pay him, they should trade him. They get, I think, a pretty premium pick back. Fun destination? How about the 49ers? I don't love the Diamador Lenore, Isaiah Oliver tandem opposite Travarius Ward in nickel packages. I like to upgrade that one. Now, Johnson's great. It would be expensive. The Niners do not care about expensive. They are not afraid to be aggressive. Now a defensive star piece in the trade deadline, like the offensive star piece last year. I think at minimum the Bears should say no to anything that's not at least a second-round pick. That's not Patrick Surtain level. That's probably 2 firsts and more for the Jalen Ramsey package. Maybe you can get another pick involved there as well. John's coming off one of his best games ever. He was awesome against the Raiders, although it was Brian Hoyer and AOC, which it's not exactly a good combo. But this year, been locked down and flashing some balls because he didn't show previously. 43.5%, 111 yards, 0 scores, 2 INTs, 3 pass breakups. He's been impressive. He really has been. I think if the Bears shop him, it should be a very premium pick, at minimum a 2 going back to them. Put your trade predictions in the comments section. Name the team and the player. If you want to add the competition, that's great, but at minimum the team and the player. Sound off in the comments right now. Mike Gesicki, the Patriots, despite being better, the shocking upset against the Bills, right? Are they a contender, producer Chris? You're a Patriots fan? No, he says no. He says no, because they're not, and that's fair. Other teams could use some tight end talent. So how about a team that never, ever, 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 almost ever, makes deadline deals? The Bengals. Gesicki's a good tight end, too, in New England. He would be the best tight end on the Bengals roster pretty comfortably because Joe Burrow does not like the current options at the spot. I think it'd be pretty cheap as well. A 6th-round pick, and maybe it could even be that whole day 3 pick swap in there as well. But the Bengals have not had great success so far from the tight ends. Gesicki has shown a bit more this year than what he showed last year. He's 7 games in, and he's already trending towards being able to get to about halfway what he did previously with Dolphins. You're not going to get the 700-yard guy, I don't think, ever again, maybe. But I do think you'd be able to get the other results from this team. You'd be able to get more than what the Bengals have done so far this year, which frankly has been pretty embarrassing at that position. So far this year they've put together 16 catches for 107 yards across their entire tight end room. Gesicki as a backup tight end, a tight end 2, has done more than that in New England. He'd be an upgrade instantaneously in Cincinnati over what they have right now. Who is the best team in the NFL? Sound off in the comments section. Was the Niners, I thought, and then they've lost 2 games in a row, and that's kind of dangerous from that perspective. And it's just not great overall. Best team in the NFL. I see Dolphins. I can't get on board when they have a worse record than the Eagles team that just beat them. I can't quite get there all the way. It's not that far off, but it's not where I'm at for the Dolphins. Chiefs, I think, is a very good option as well. Let's see. I've got Seattle, Cowboys, Dolphins, Ravens, Eagles, the Seahawks. They just lost to the Bengals. I can't get on board with that one. Ravens, I think they're not that far off. They've lost some tough games. I'm very impressed by them. Cowboys, I'm not going that one either there. Eagles pulling for my Falcons. I think that's fair. Maybe no, that's just a Bird fan, even though birds aren't real. Chiefs, Falcons. I don't know about. They're not the best team. They're definitely not. They might win the division though. Kind of think that they will in the end. Niners, Eagles, Chiefs, 1A, 1B. I like that one there. Panthers, Steelers when they're close to going to 500. I like that answer. Yeah, I feel like Pittsburgh's going to lose this week and then win a game they shouldn't win again. They will go 9-8 this year minimum. That's what Mike Tomlin does. It's kind of shockingly impressive how frequently he's able to pull that one off. All right, it's mailbag time. Seen a couple already, but this is your chance to get on the show. Use hashtag NFL or Super Chat if you want to skip the line altogether. Super Chats are guaranteed to get on the air. Otherwise, you're kind of at the mercy of, producer Chris picking your question. So 2 ways, Super Chat or use hashtag NFL to get on the show. If you guys enjoy these NFL mailbags, especially when there are so many trade questions I know that happen, then like today's video. Very simple. The more likes we get, the more videos we do. So if you like these, just like the video. It's that simple. True Allure. How should the Niners address the lack of communication on both sides? I think you got to get in there and study some film and talk your way through it. The Niners are not a bad team. They've had 2 bad games. I think they'll be able to bounce back, but this might be an example of you blew out the Cowboys, everyone crowned you the best team in the NFL, and you got a little bit too cocky for yourself. Maybe that's the issue. Cameron Briglin. I think the Bills will trade for Hunter Renfrow before the trade deadline. Funnily enough, that was my trade idea on our most recent trade predictions video, at least the one that I did, I should say. I think it makes sense. Slot receiver, short area stuff, make life easier on Josh Allen. There's some tight end injury issues. They weren't really respecting your 2 tight end run sets anyway because Kincaid can't block, so that was kind of always my concern with that draft pick there. I would have no issues. I think it'd be pretty cheap, fills a need, and gets you pretty solid value. Tyler G., Ravens trade ideas. The defense is outplaying its talent level. I think it's credit to Mike McDonald. By the way, he's a fantastic defensive coordinator. So I would look for some more secondary help. Hopefully, Mark Humphrey still because I'm worried about Humphrey getting hurt. If Humphrey goes down, that's a dangerous room. Would not be mad at a running back either. Even a less big name than a Barkley or a Henry, I think would help out the Ravens a bit as well. From Steven, will Brian Burns get moved for a first? Remember, Brian Burns, the Panthers rejected an offer of 2 future firsts, so not really straight up 2 firsts because it would have been, likely would have been a late one this year and a future late one, but they did turn down 2 firsts from the Rams allegedly, and then said, we'd rather trade the Bears DJ Moore because I think it's easier to find a receiver, and have not paid Brian Burns yet. So if he gets moved, I think a first at minimum is going to be the cost. There might be a team that steps up. That's one of your best feasible options. If you think a first-round pick is going to get moved this year, it's Brian Burns. Rams might come calling again. I'm not sure they're fully by themselves that they're selling all off season, but there should be some interest in Burns if the Panthers decide to trade him. All right, over or under 7.5 trades between now and the end of the NFL trade deadline. O for over, U for under. It is the pinned comment on today's show, so if the ad comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. From Fire Mike McCarthy, why does Jerry Jones want teams to call them instead of him calling to trade for a player? Because Jerry wants to win the deal, and you don't win the deal by calling for a player. They don't think they're desperate, so they're down to make trades at the right cost. This is how they do business with the Jones boys in charge. I hate it. Eric Burton, do the Bucs make a move? If it is, I think it'll be minor. I don't think they get actively aggressive in terms of buying or selling. NFC South's wide open between the Saints, Bucs, and Falcons. I doubt any of those 3 teams get ultra aggressive. And in the end, they choose to just kind of stand pat and see if they can make that run for the 4 seed in the NFC. Milvet313, do the Falcons make a trade? How about that? Kind of answer that one accidentally. I think they kind of stand pat. They did make the one move for Van Jefferson, very minor trade. I think that's kind of all they'll do there. Maybe a young, cheap trade materializes, but I don't think they're going to be big buyers at the deadline. Food review. Since we know the NFC East curse is a thing, should the NFL look into and change the rule on the 12-5 Eagles have to go to Atlanta doesn't seem fair. I actually like it. I know I'm different on that one. Winning your division should matter. This doesn't have to be, I don't want it to become NBA. Like, does anyone know who the NBA divisions are? It's like, the Bulls, and they're in the West with no one knows what it is. It doesn't matter. It's meaningless. I want the rivalry games. I want the division titles to matter. So if you want to install a must be above 500 rule, I'm actually okay with that one. But I do think there should be some big rewards for winning your division, because you only play the teams you end up in your division twice. That stuff does matter in the end. Austin. Should the Raiders trade Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams and tank? Should they? Maybe. Will they? No. Josh McDaniels thinks he can win. Now, I think in reality, Josh McDaniels, because of who he is as a head coach and decision maker, is tanking this team on accident, but I don't think that they will. I think it would make sense to trade those guys away. Maybe in the offseason you shop Devontae Adams again, because I think he's unhappy, because how could he not be? Like, he's not getting the ball and they're losing games. Star receivers hate that shit. It never goes well for them. I don't trust McDaniels at all. Whether it's at this deadline or maybe this upcoming offseason, it might be time for some Josh McDaniels firing and some rebuilding in Vegas, despite the maybe cash flow issues that Mark Davis has. Should the Raiders blow it all up? Y for yes, N for no. Sound off for me in the comment section right now. Andre, will the Raiders draft a QB in round 1 next year? Depends on where they are taking a pick. If they're at pick like 2, hell yeah, they are. If they're at pick 17 and they rally late, probably not. But they should consider it. They really should, because they also won't play Aiden O'Connell, he's not the guy, I don't think, but Jimmy G ain't. Hoyer sure as hell ain't. Again, McDaniels is a clown. Marcos Noah, can you give me some good trades the Dolphins can do before the deadline? Can you call about Garrett Bowles? Can you call about some offensive linemen? Easier said than done, I know. The Patriots won't trade you linemen because it's division, which kind of stinks. Is Denver shopping Garrett Bowles? Are the Titans shopping Daniel Brunskill? I think I pronounced the last name correctly. Like, that's a great name. Knows the offense, McDaniel connection, fills a huge need. I think I just love that. That's a great idea for Miami. Mark Kearns, as a Bucs fan, should we buy, sell, or do nothing? I would stand pat. Other teams might want a Mike Evans or whatever, but if the Bucs had 2 wins, I'd be like, you know what? Maybe they should consider selling at this stage. You know, maybe they should blow it up and look to move on from some key pieces. I do think, look, you have a tough Thursday night game against the Bills. I get all of that. Worst case, you're still going to be a game and a half, 2 games back, whatever it is, of the NFC South, where you should have just beaten the Falcons. You actually have a -1 point differential entering Thursday Night Football. Like, you're not that far away. I would hold pat, because you can still win that division. Speaking of winning, today's show made possible by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports in North America. It is just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, the pros, the sharks, the sharps, etc., you simply pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you watch the winnings roll in. So go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Links in the comments and the description. My picks, by the way, for this week's slate of games. No TNF involved there. More than Bryce Young passing yards, breakout games coming. Travis Kelce, more than half touchdown in that one, and more than Trevor Lawrence passing yards as well. I love the flex play because I'm great at coming up one leg short, so I'm going to keep doing the flex play and coming out not as on top, but still on top in the end. Clayton Lockhart, what O-line or a linebacker is out there for the Cowboys to bring in? Vikings stun the Niners. I don't know if Jordan Hicks will really be available. They should call on him. I think it's a good name. Denver's got some pieces. Josie Jewell, Alex Singleton, Garrett Bowles as well. Daryl Richard, Jonathan Allen to Detroit. Could this be a possibility? I love the fit. I love the idea for the Lions. You had an impact 3 technique, one of my favorite defensive linemen in the NFL. I would be surprised, despite Allen's understandably frustrated public comments about losing, if the Commanders traded him. They've paid him, and that organization, the guys in charge, led by Ron Rivera, it does not benefit their own job security to trade pieces away. Makes it a bit unlikely for that to go down. Mitch Wilson, if the Panthers finish last, who will likely to draft Caleb Williams? I think the answer is nobody. I think the Bears do. Unless Justin Fields balls out down the stretch, you take Caleb Williams. You buy yourself some time on that quarterback clock. It's a possible outcome. Don't get me wrong. Otherwise, I think the team that picks number 2 comes up to snag him. And then maybe the Bears should trade down again. Or the team at 2 or 3 comes up to get Caleb Williams. Mark Barron, what in the world is wrong with the Commanders? Don't be disrespectful, please. And thanks. I'll try. Look, they're just not that good of a team on offense. Not trying to be rude. Sam Howell is a chaos agent. He'll make some great plays for you. There are a lot of sacks in that offense because Sam Howell holds the ball way too long. He holds the ball, doesn't throw it away. The O-line's not great. The scheme from the enemy has not been enough quick game to get the ball out quick enough. When it is, it's Howell holding it. You know, you're not getting the ball to Jahan Dotson consistently enough. I think Howell's an NFL quarterback, and he's top 40-ish, but he might not be top 20-ish, and that's holding you back despite a good defense. So I think Ron Rivera at times is just kind of an outdated coach. I just think they're lacking enough talent at the critical areas, specifically on offense. If you want more free videos here on the channel, then just subscribe. It's that simple. NFL news, rumors, trades, draft, free agency, playoff stuff as well. Hit that sub button if you haven't already done so. How about them Niners? Says give us Cordero Patterson, Atlanta. Give us Chase Young, Washington, and give us Jaylon Johnson, Chicago. I doubt you're going to get Chase Young. I think Jaylon Johnson, if he's traded, the Niners are a great fit. Patterson actually might be available. Aaron Arnold, Puka Nacua, rest of the year, a fantasy question on today's show. I think Puka Nacua falls into the not great category of he's definitely worth starting every week. He will produce at a higher rate for the most part than you would expect, and you won't be able to get the proper trade value back for him. He's probably a bonus player on your roster. You might be better served trading off a bigger name and riding with Nacua the rest of the way. Mano, I assume that the ZB is silent there, which I think is pretty fun. Trade Jair Alexander. If the Packers want to do it, that's fine with me. I think that'd be pretty dumb of them if they traded him away because he's a long-term piece. But if they shop him, a lot of teams would have interest. Vivek 515. Do you see Quentin Johnston ever doing anything this season? That is the Chargers receiver, first-round pick from TCU. I would hope so. It's not a 100% match, but there is a bad history of if your receiver doesn't put up good numbers in year one as a first-round pick, they pretty much never do. Like, the success rate's non-existent. So that's a concern for me. From Peter, will the Cardinals trade Hollywood Brown? The money's a bit of a problem for other teams. I also wonder if Arizona, with a new regime, wants to make sure when Kyler Murray comes back, he has some playmakers. Because if he doesn't, you're tanking, that hurts his trade value. You kind of want to see what you have in him if you're going to take the pick, the QB or not. So I think, no, they won't trade him. Now, name a player who you want to see traded this year. Sound off for me in the comments section. Any player, any team, who do you want to see moved? Bulls Nation, the Colts trade a second for Jerry Jeudy and Josie Jewell. Ooh. I actually don't know if linebacker's a big need for Indy. You know, they have Shaquille Leonard. I think they have enough pieces at linebacker overall to not justify what Jewell's a rental. Jeudy's a longer-term piece. I think they would have interest there to help out their receiving core, for help Richardson long-term. But I think a rental in Josey Jewell doesn't move the needle for a team that's not really going to be a real playoff threat. Gaming Wizard, should the Bucs bench Baker Mayfield? No. Not great against the Falcons. I get that. So that's kind of 2 iffy games in a row. He's been one of the better, surprising QBs this year. He's been solid. He's not perfect. He's probably not a real long-term answer, but Kyle Trask ain't either. So I would not bench Baker Mayfield if I were Tampa. All right, what do you guys like more? D for the draft, T for trades, or F for free agency? Sound off in the comments section right now. D for draft, T for trades, F for free agency. Get those votes in. D, T, or F? Milvet says D. Nivik says T. Jovan says D. Romano Mato says D. Wesley Baker says T. I like draft myself. I'm a draft nerd, not a slur. I can say it, and also it's very accurate as well. Lots of D's coming, which ties in very well to what's coming up next here on the show. We'll talk draft. Mel Kiper has a new big board out, and man, I got some thoughts on that one. But keep the comments coming. D, T, or F? Decent amount of D's, not quite 1-to-1, but a pretty quality percentage of those coming in here. So keep the comments coming. D, T, or F? You're watching NFL Daily. I am Tom Downey. Today's show made possible by the all-new Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. We will tell you all about the latest and greatest in men's grooming from Manscaped as part of today's show, which focuses on Mel Kiper's newest 2024 NFL Draft Big Board. The simplest, non-mean way to say it, it's interesting. The first names make sense. The rest of it is curious. So let's dive into it. Number 1, no change here, Caleb Williams out of USC. Okay, I mean, they make sense right now. There's been some up and downs out of Caleb Williams. There's too many times he just doesn't want to operate well enough in structure for me, but the out-of-structure stuff is absolutely unique. I get the trend is to be mean to him because he hyped him up so much. That's why I give him a full year, but I do like Caleb Williams quite a bit. Drake May is number 2 on this list. He also had the tough loss against Virginia, by the way, again, because no quarterback's perfect. I think he's been very good. He reminds some of Justin Herbert. These are by far your 2 betting favorites to be number 1 with a heavy lean still towards Caleb Williams. Who do you think ends up being the number 1 pick in the 2024 NFL Draft? CW for Caleb Williams, DM for Drake May, or you can type in O for other. Get those predictions in for me in the comment section right now. I think pretty clearly your top non-quarterback prospect is Marvin Harrison Jr. It really is like it's Marvin Harrison's kid, except he's bigger, which is kind of crazy to think about there. He's probably not going to get the same grade, not going to be as rare a prospect as Calvin Johnson, but he might be the best receiver prospect since Calvin Johnson was. Number 4, Brock Bowers. Unfortunately, we might not see him play again this year after the ankle surgery. He still had 545 yards this season before the ankle injury, which is astounding production for a tight end. To put it in perspective, Marvin Harrison had barely 200 yards more as a receiver with an extra game. So Bowers, a special prospect. It's a matter of how early can you take a tight end? That's tough for teams. Mel Kiper remains on his Shedeur Sanders hype train. He has not backed off that, saying he's a future first-round pick. The Buffalo's defense is the real problem in the offensive line. Shedeur threw for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. He's been electric. I do wonder, because he would not be the first quarterback taken, could he go back to school next year? Instead of being maybe fighting to be a top 5, top 10 pick, could he just come back to school and be the early favorite to be the first overall pick? He might just do it. Olu Fashanu out of Penn State. I'll give JT Tuimoloau credit from Ohio State. He got the best of Fashanu a couple times. Hasn't happened that often in the course of his career at Penn State. Actually got dinged for a sack for once. That's very unusual for Fashanu. But he's an awesome tackle prospect. I think he would have been the first tackle taken had he turned pro last year. Now, ignoring the positional value among quarterbacks, etc., who is the best player in the 2024 NFL Draft? Sound off at the pinned comments of today's video. If the ad comes on YouTube, take advantage. Head down there and go vote. Number 7. This has been my guy for a while. Rome Odunze, the wide receiver out of Washington. Bunch of great productions. He's got fantastic body control. Big guy at 6'3", 215, listed size. I like Odunze a lot. Now we get crazy with it. Troy Faltuna, how do I pronounce it? Faltuna. I like the player. Let me be clear on that. I do think his best fit is at guard. But being 8th on this list, I can't get on board with this one. He's been good this year. In fact, he's been pretty good. I like him as surprise first-round pick name, maybe. 8th overall is maybe the NFL's higher on him. That's why Mel put him on there. I don't have him 8th. Maybe a day 2 pick right now is a bit more realistic for him. Maybe I'm wrong. Wouldn't be the first time. That is shockingly aggressive ranking for him. I do like Cooper DeJean, though, at number 9. We can argue about that fair catch call or not. He's a playmaker, not just on defense, but special teams. He can play, I think, every spot in the secondary. He can be a 4-down player, which isn't that common for defensive backs, on returns at least. Big fan of his game. I think he should be a first-round pick. I also love Keon Coleman. It's very telling how bad the Michigan State passing offense was and the offense overall, despite having Jaden Reed, who was a day 2 pick, and a likely first-round pick in Keon Coleman. I mentioned the body control for Rome Odunze, even better for Keon Coleman. He might be my number 2 receiver when it's all said and done. A strong class behind Marvin Harrison this year. Ladies and gentlemen, some fantastic news from Manscaped. The Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra is out. Yeah, I am lucky to be one of the first people to try out the new Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. They feature a new cutting-edge design and next-generation dual skin-safe blade heads for different shaves. It's a spaceship. Take your boys downstairs to the next level. It's the 5th-generation trimmer from Manscaped. It is a game changer as well. It's got 2 heads, right? A standard trimmer blade for taking a little bit off the top, and a new foil blade to go for that smooth finish wherever your heart desires. Get 20% off and free shipping with code CHAT over at manscaped.com/chat. That's 20% off and free shipping with code CHAT over at manscaped.com/chat. Your balls have been through enough, folks. It's time to go ultra with Manscaped. Number 11, Dallas Turner. I think he is one of the better edge rushers. Teaser, I think the best edge rusher is not on Mel's big board. We'll get to that later on, I promise you. I like Turner a lot. He plays bigger than his size. He's a very good pass rusher. Joe Alt slid down the rankings for Mel, which I think was a mistake. I think he's even better than he was last year. Knocked out some of the issues that I think he had previously. I think he's your second best offensive lineman in the class. 13, Malik Neighbors. Again, it's a very good receiver class. It's Neighbors at 13, Emeka Egbuka at number 14. I think he's a little bit banged up right now. I get that. I think he's a little bit high at this moment. I don't think it should have 4 receivers in the top 14. I think that's just a little bit too much emphasis on the premium players, but he's a likely first-round pick, I'd say, at least now in October. Things change. Kalen King, number 15. Don't hate it. Good football player. It should be telling, by the way, we are at number 15, and Kalen King is, I believe, the number 3 defensive player we have discussed so far. Top 15, right? Cooper DeJean at number 9, Dallas Turner, and now King. It's not a great defensive class. My issue is that I don't think King is the number 1 corner. Another wild one. Landon Jackson. To be quite honest, Mel basically says he put him on here because he had 3.5 sacks against Alabama, which is great. Now, Caden Proctor's been pretty rough as a true freshman, but he's got 5.5 sacks all season long. So that's multiple games. He had 1 sack against BYU, 1 against Kent. This is a straight up overreaction. I like Jackson. I'm not sure he's going to go pro. If he does, he will get drafted in the top 100, I'd say. But putting him at 16 just reeks of great against Bama, change it type of deal. I think that's an overreaction from Mel. Now, if you are excited for the 2024 NFL Draft, this is your spot, man. Hit that sub button right now for more free NFL Draft YouTube videos all season long. Kool-Aid McKinstry, who was a fringe top 20 player last time from Mel, which I was kind of surprised by. Look, how many times did Tennessee target him in that game? Tennessee versus Alabama, they got all these great receivers. They want to air it out, etc. I think it is very telling when opposing teams are like, yeah, you know what, we're going to try to avoid you in that game and not look your way because you're just better than our guys. I think that's a great indication of how good somebody actually is. In that football game, McKinstry was targeted 4 times, 1 catch, 10 yards. That's it. That's awesome play. Another man player, J.C. Latham. He's really good at right tackle. I don't know if he can play left tackle. I think he's been very solid so far this year. Could play some guard maybe as well. Like him in the top 20. Jared Verse should be falling. I think that is the correct, I don't even call it an overreaction, just a reaction. 2 sacks against Virginia Tech 2 weeks ago. He's got 2.5 sacks all year long. He's gotten some pressures, don't get me wrong, but to be in that first defensive player draft at a wide open race, by the way, got to do more. I do love some love for Troy Franklin. Not to phrase my words weirdly there. He's a number 1 playmaker for Oregon at wide receiver. Has done a lot of success with Bo Nix, averaging like almost 4 yards per route run. Another big target. Last year's class had 0 X receivers. It was like Jonathan Mingo and nobody else, and he got overdrafted as a result. This year class, full of X wide receivers. Michael Penix Jr. out of Washington. A tricky evaluation, frankly. The medical's a massive red flag that is going to be very tough for us to really figure out what's going on there. There's also no doubt among college football QBs, he's one of the best ones. And probably should be viewed as your Heisman favorite right now. He also benefits from a great offensive line and great receivers. Not just Rome Odunze, but Jalen McMillan, Jalen Polk. There's a lot of talent there. There are moments. I don't think the arm is as super strong. The deep ball success is great. Sometimes the intermediate accuracy can tend to wane. If he's fully healthy, this is fine. But he's also going to be 24 years old with an injury history. That's kind of a red flag. So will Michael Penix be a first-round pick? 1 for yes or 0 for no. Please sound off for me in the comments section right now. Like seeing Jordan Morgan on here, the Arizona OT. A lot of good, these late first-round range tackles. Oklahoma's Tyler Guyton, Patrick Paul from Houston, and more all stand out to me. Another ex-receiver. Again, I think there's too many receivers up here overall. It's not that great of a class, Mel. It's a good class. Xavier Leggett. This is one of the biggest risers this year. He had 18 catches last year, which was 10th on South Carolina's entire team, and now is putting up 19.4 yards per catch. He is already at 36 yards this year, putting up numbers like you put him side by side with Marvin Harrison, and you go, oh, they're both pretty good. Yeah, Leggett is awesome. Big guy too, 6'3", 227. I'm sure someone will try to say he's Deebo Samuel because they both played at South Carolina. He's not Deebo. He's a bigger guy. Drazon Newton, my favorite defensive tackle prospect. He's a bit undersized compared to most guys, but hey, he's really good up front. A 8th wide receiver. Mel, not 8 receivers in the top 25. Come on now. J. Michael Sertivant out of UCLA, who has been good. Don't get me wrong. He's a solid player. I do not think he's a top 25 player in this class. I think that's a massive overreaction. He's good. I don't think we should have 8 receivers in our top 25 this year. Now, who is Mel Kiper hating on this video? I have several names I want to get to I think he is disrespecting. But first, I want to hear from you guys. Sound off in the comment section right now. I think the biggest and frankly unacceptable miss is Latu out of UCLA, who not only does Mel Kiper not have in his top 25 at all, Latu is not in. He's number 2 on his outside linebackers, which he also has Barrett Carter as an edge rusher, which makes no sense. His ordering never makes sense to me. You're saying he's not. I think he's the best pass rusher in college football right now. It's way too low. J.J. McCarthy, I think we should stop sleeping on him. I know the competition has not been great, and signs, steals, whatever. He's 6th for Mel among QBs. How? Quinn Ewers now down to 7 as Bo Nix has jumped him again, but Ewers also didn't have his best game against Oklahoma, did he? Amarius Mims, I know he's injured. It's a small sample size. He has been really good when he's played. He is not in Mel's top 10 tackles. Doesn't make sense to me. Chop Robinson is the number 4 outside linebacker. He has Chris Braswell at 3, which just reeks of Alabama boost. Because I like Braswell. He should not be the number 3 outside linebacker. Again, use edges, Mel. 2023, my guy. Leonard Taylor, who has made an appearance on this list before. That's fine. Very light on defensive tackles overall. Several names you could go with there. Nate Wiggins, the cornerback from Clemson, was number 4 on Mel's list. I like him a lot. I think he's a good football player. Denzel Burke, not in the top 10 either. I think that's a mistake. Graham Barton is probably going to move to guard. Mel put him at center, which is just tradition. In general, I've noticed this in draft media. If you take a tackle and you say, oh, he's actually a center, it's code for he's been good. I don't know why. I just don't like him that much. That's what it's code for. And then safety, Cameron Kinchins, who I think is a baller, is also Mel's number 1 safety. Before we go, a super chat from Chris B. says, draft is my favorite because the Cowboys don't do the other 2. Yeah, that's pretty fair. Back to the pinned comments of today's show. Will the Titans trade away Derrick Henry? No loop today, so get your votes in one last time. Y for yes, N for no. We're also 5 likes away from 100. Can we get there? Before we go, I think that'd be pretty cool. Vote in the pin poll and like the video today as well. And make sure you are subscribed. We will have tons of NFL trade deadline coverage for you guys right here at Chat Sports. So if you haven't already, hit that sub button right now, and we'll see you guys again on Thursday for our next live NFL show.